Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to welcome you for our second launch of the year from the Guyana Space Center, again with Ariane 5. Tonight, Ariane 5 is set to deliver into an optimized geostationary transfer orbit, Eutelsat 65 West A, for Eutelsat, a world leader in the field of satellite services. Our launcher will be required a performance around 6.7 tons and will have a window of 3 hours to lift off, opening at 5:20 a.m. Universal Time. The mission will last a little more than 27 minutes. I would like to thank warmly Eutelsat, whose nearly half of the satellite fleet currently in orbit has been launched by the Ariane family. Manufactured by Space Systems Loral, Eutelsat 65 West A will be Eutelsat's first satellite operated at 65 degrees west. It will provide Latin America with a variety of communication services, including direct-to-home television and internet access, and based on C, Ku, and Ka-band transponders. Tonight, Arianespace is particularly proud to deliver a 31st mission for Eutelsat, and thus contribute to its growth ambition through the use of a new orbital location at 65 degrees west. But our 85th Ariane 5 is now being readied for launch, so enjoy the show.
Welcome. You join us live at the Guyana Space Center for the second launch of the year. And there's Ariane 5 on the pad going through the final preparations. Inside is our passenger, Eutelsat 65 West A for Eutelsat communication and built by Space Systems Loral. Liftoff is scheduled in just over 12 minutes. You can see the countdown on the top right-hand side of your screen there. And this is mission control. We've got various operational teams working in here. I'm Katie Haswell, and I will be with you throughout this launch. A very big hello to everybody who's watching us at the Satellite 2016 event in Washington. Our launch is actually coinciding with the Commercial Space Trade Show, and we have a live video link. We're beaming our live program straight to the event, and we're also looking forward to hearing from some of those key players after the launch. We're looking here at the status panels. These are beamed straight into mission control. These are a little bit like traffic lights. Red is stop, green is go. Right now everything is green, which means that we are go for launch. The main systems are sending their status, their health status if you like, to these panels. And we're looking here at the launch system, the launcher and the pad, the range. Things like telemetry, radars, weather and safeguarding, and of course the status of the satellite. So we are launching an Ariane 5 tonight, the biggest member of the Arianespace family. She's divided into 3 sections. We call them stages. The boosters constitute the first stage, and they are attached to the big tank in the middle, which is the main stage. That burns cryogenic propellant, and above that another cryogenic stage, the upper stage, and attached to that is the fairing. That's the pointy bit at the top. And inside is our satellite, Eutelsat 65 West A for Eutelsat communications. It's a big one. It's 6.5 kilograms. It's a telecommunications satellite, and it's going to be sitting at 65 degrees west.
I think she meant 6.5 tons.
Back here in mission control, we are about 18 kilometers away from that pad, and There are various different teams working here in what we call the fishbowl behind this glass. This is one of those teams. It's called the Flight Control Desk, or the Flight Directorate. Arianespace top management. They take all the important decisions if there are unplanned situations. And the teams working across the base report directly to them in real time. And you can see there a good image there of the fishbowl with the glass, and these teams are inside it. Eutelsat 65 West A is going to provide important services for Latin America, and in particular Brazil.
Tonight is the launch of Eutelsat 65 West A, the heaviest spacecraft ever launched for Eutelsat operator.
Eutelsat 65 West A is a tri-band satellite designed to target fast-growing markets across Latin America. The satellite features high-power Ku-band regional coverage to drive growth of direct-to-home broadcasting in Brazil and facilitate corporate connectivity in the region.
This spacecraft will open new markets for Eutelsat for broadcast and broadband services in Brazil and across Latin America.
It also includes transatlantic C-band coverage for cross-continental video contribution and distribution. Finally, a multi-spot beam Ka-band payload will promote broadband access across Latin America, notably Brazil.
Eutelsat is the satellite operating leader in Europe, North Africa and Middle East, and counts up to 40 satellites in orbit.
The satellite will reach geostationary orbit ahead of the Rio de Janeiro Olympics, offering a unique solution for live TV transmissions from Brazil to Latin America, Europe and worldwide through the Eutelsat global fleet.
Arianespace is proud to count more than 30 years of collaboration with Eutelsat. This company has built an empire, which is today the third largest operator in terms of revenue in the world and the third customer of Arianespace in terms of launch satellite.
A couple of other key people in mission control. This is the mission director. Today it's Cyril Ponnois, and he coordinates the day-to-day activities at the launch pad. And another key person is the...
À tous de DDO, à la séquence finale lanceur.
The range operations manager.
Top H0-7 minutes.
And you'll be hearing his voice throughout this launch. He's just announced the beginning of the synchronized sequence, which is a key moment in the countdown. It means that we've had the all systems go report, allowing the start of the sequence. So teams have been working at the base now for about 7 weeks to prepare for today. The parts of Ariane 5 arrived at the port in Kourou after an 11-day journey from Europe and were transported to the launcher integration building for assembly. The solid rocket boosters were transferred from storage and attached to the main stage. The upper stage was then integrated with the vehicle equipment bay containing the onboard computer. The whole thing was then transferred to the final assembly building. Meanwhile, a few kilometres away, Eutelsat 65 West A underwent its own preparation in the clean and secure environment of the dedicated satellite facilities here at the Guiana Space Centre, where teams performed a number of operations, including filling the tanks with propellant. Once transferred to the final assembly building, operations could begin to install the satellite in the launcher using special attachment systems. The whole thing was encapsulated inside the protective environment of the fairing to form what is known as the upper composite. The day before launch, Ariane 5 and her passenger were rolled out to the pad along a dedicated track, all fully integrated on the launch table with the umbilical tower and supply systems, ready for the final preparations for today's journey. So that was yesterday, and this is today. 4 minutes and 58 seconds now to launch. And this pad is just one of a number of facilities at the Guyana Space Center, and that of course includes the tracking stations. And the teams here in Mission Control focusing hard now. And the base covers an area of roughly 700 kilometers squared. That's about 4 times the size of Washington, D.C. Pretty big, huh? And the whole thing's called the range. And you can imagine the logistics involved in everybody communicating with each other. That's why all the information comes here to Mission Control, and everybody listens to the Range Operations Manager. So Mission Control, as I said, is about 18 kilometers from that pad. Closer to the pad, about 3 kilometers away, is another control center. It's called Launch Control, and the teams in Launch Control deal solely with the launcher itself. There are various different teams here. One of them is responsible for the ground operations, led by the Launch Site Operations Manager. They coordinate with Mission Control for the final authorization to launch. We also have the Launcher Production Quality Manager, who keeps an eye on all the operations. And another team ensures the flight readiness of the vehicle, and they oversee all the operations from the assembly of the launcher to the moment of launch. And the Launch Campaign Quality Manager makes sure that everybody follows procedures. Today it's Erica Velio. We also have the safeguarding team, and they ensure that all the operations are carried out according to very strict rules, guaranteeing the utmost safety at the base. So those guys are in what we call the bunker. It's protected under thick concrete just to protect them because they're close to the pad. 2 minutes and 40 seconds to launch. We're still green. We're still go for launch. The final countdown actually started about 10.5 hours ago with the checking of electrical systems. 4 hours and 20 minutes ago, roughly, we started filling the cryogenic main stage with liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen, and then about an hour later we started filling the upper stage, and we used the cryogenic arms to fill the upper stage. You can see them there if you take your eye 3/4 of the way up the launcher. Those orange arms clamping themselves onto the upper stage. You can't see them. There we go. There's a close-up of them clamping on. They are filling liquid hydrogen, and to maintain both of those in a liquid form, we need to store them at extremely low temperatures, very cold. The hydrogen at minus 253 Celsius and the oxygen at minus 150. So we're talking here absolute zero. And those fluids are so cold that they evaporate. You can just see a little bit of smoke coming out of the top there. That's probably what that is. And so those arms are going to disconnect 5 seconds before we launch, and that is because we need to top up the tanks right until the last possible moment. So watch out for that as we get close.
À tous de DDO, attention pour moins 1 minute. Top, H0 moins 1 minute.
We are live at the Guyana Space Center for the launch of Eutelsat 65 West A, a telecommunications satellite for Eutelsat and built by Space Systems Loral. Our very best wishes to all the teams, to all our customers, and good luck everybody now as we sit back and watch.
À tous de DDO, attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage du Vulcain. Allumage des EAP, décollage. La propulsion est nominale, les paramètres bord sont nominaux. La trajectoire est normale, les paramètres bord sont normaux.
And there she goes, lighting up the night sky over the equator. Here at the Guyana Space Center, we've broken the sound barrier. We're traveling supersonic, faster than the speed of sound, which is just over 1,200 kilometers an hour at sea level. And we've got clear skies tonight, so we might just get lucky and see the boosters with the naked eye falling away. Those boosters are doing all the work right now, providing 90% of our thrust and burning at 3,000 degrees Celsius.
Séparation des étages d'accélération à poutre.
And you can see them. You just saw them there falling away. And these are images from a previous launch. We don't need them anymore. They've burnt all their propellant. And we're shedding weight. We've already lost about 3/4 of our weight in just over 2 minutes. And you can see there we are now burning the main stage, that tank of cryogenic propellant, the grey tank. He's telling us that everything is going according to plan. If you look at the top of the launcher, you can see the fairing there. That's protecting the satellite of the launch. Various riggers. There's the acoustic vibrations at liftoff. Well, I'm sure you can imagine that it's extremely loud. And friction, of course, because until now we've been flying through the dense part of the atmosphere. But if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, you can see that our altitude is 120 kilometers above the Earth. So we're now on the outer edge of the atmosphere. And we no longer have friction because we are effectively
Largage de la coiffe.
in space now, and we're able to jettison and look at it go. Can you see how it moves there? That's called the breathing mode. All part of the plan. And those parts flex as they fall. Incredible to think that it takes less than 4 minutes to climb out of Earth's atmosphere. That's all that separates us from space. Makes life possible here on Earth. So we can see Eutelsat 65 West A for the first time now.
Vu de la manœuvre en roulis, la trajectoire est normale, les paramètres bord sont normaux.
Everything's going normally, he says. And if you look on the right-hand side of the screen, you can still see the image there of the satellite, the solar panels, and at the front, the reflectors. We're just launching one satellite today, which is unusual for Ariane 5. Normally she takes at least 2, if not more, spacecraft on board. And interestingly, this is the 7th single Ariane 5 launch of a geostationary satellite, and the previous one was on the 27th of January this year. That was carrying Eutelsat 29E. So both of the first two launches this year have been single launches. So here we can see Galileo is the tracking station at the Guiana Space Center, and the next one along is Natal on the northeast coast of Brazil. There's the Vulcan engine on the main stage, the blue flame on the left-hand side. It's extremely powerful. It burns 320 kilograms of propellant per second. That's 500 times more than a jet engine. Everything's normal, he says. So let's take a look now at the screen. At the bottom is our altitude, bottom left-hand side. We're 199 kilometers above the Earth. In the middle is the distance, and that's the distance along the ground from the pad, if you were to draw a straight line along the Earth. And the speed on the bottom right-hand side, we're coming up to 4 kilometers per second. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you that it's per second, not per hour. That's phenomenally fast. And on the top right-hand side, you can see the trajectory. The curve is the plotted path of the vehicle, and the white dot is the actual position of the launcher. Our next tracking station to pick up the signal is Natal in Brazil. And we've just had confirmation there from the range operations manager that we have picked up the signal there in Natal. We're heading out across the Atlantic. The flight path takes us along the equator across Africa, and we're going to start separating our satellite over the east coast of Africa. And the ground stations along the flight pick up the signal as Ariane flies over. We call that telemetry because Ariane then sends data to those ground stations, and this is going to tell us how the flight is progressing in real time. Then later, of course, we can see how the vehicle performed, and all that is analysed. It's called the Level 0 Flight Evaluation, and that takes place a few weeks after the launch. The Space Centre is, of course, on the equator, and there are a few advantages of launching from the equator. It is the fast stationary orbit, and it also helps us with the natural rotation of the Earth. This was 8 minutes and 34 seconds ago. We took off from the pad at the Guiana Space Center on the northeast coast of South America, the Amazonian coast, on the edge of the rainforest.
Extinction de l'étage principal cryotechnique sur commande de guidage, séparation de l'EPC.
So he's just told us that we have now switched off the engine and lost the main stage and switched on the engine of the upper stage.
Moteur de l'ESC.
And this is the beginning of the next phase in the journey. The upper stage has taken the wheel. It's a bit like a driver. It's going to transport the satellite to its correct orbit so that we can separate it, because the satellite will then have to head out on its own journey. Teams here concentrating hard in the Mission Control Center. Eutelsat Communications is one of the world's leading satellite operators. This satellite's going to be providing some very important services across the Americas, in particular South America and Brazil. And Eutelsat's fleet provides capacity for lots of different clients, including broadcasters and pay TV operators, video, data, internet, enterprises, government agencies. Interestingly, Eutelsat 65 West A will be the first Eutelsat satellite to go to the Brazilian orbital position of 65 degrees west. I think I'm right in saying that Eutelsat won the right to operate there in 2012, and then 2 years later they also got 69.5 degrees west. So watch this space. Eutelsat 65 West A will play a vital role in the Rio Olympics. It's going to be a very important member of the fleet. And it's also going to be covering French Guiana, so I think a lot of people will be very pleased about that. 12 minutes and 39 seconds into the flight.
Acquisition d'un télémesure lanceur par la station d'ascension.
And we picked up the signal at the Ascension tracking station. Ascension Island is in the middle of the Atlantic. It's a volcanic island in the equatorial waters halfway between South America and Africa. And it was a stopping point for commercial airliners during the early days of international air travel. NASA had a communications dish there during the space race in the mid-1900s. I think it was used to track the Apollos. We're looking at CGI images, computer-generated images. They're showing us what the experts have calculated is actually happening to the launcher and the satellite. Basically, the teams plan a very precise schedule of events, and that's based on extremely accurate predictions, and then put all of that information into the computer. And these images are a simulation of those predictions. So every movement and every rotation, every flash that you see is based exactly on what's been planned for the flight. Everyone's been working hard to prepare Eutelsat 65 West A for today.
The single launch configuration for Eutelsat 65WA has been decided only a few months ago, and all the activities led until today to reach spacecraft, launch vehicle, and launch base readiness for launch have been performed straightforward. Alan, how would you describe the last part of this cycle, the launch campaign?
A launch campaign is always challenging. This campaign was particularly intense because we decided to accelerate the campaign in order to meet customer expectation and to meet the rendezvous of the Rio Olympics. SSL, Arianespace, CSG and Eutelsat have worked closely as a team to efficiently execute this demanding launch campaign timeline.
Eutelsat 65WA is the 31st spacecraft you entrusted with for launch. Would you say that the relationship between Eutelsat and Arianespace operational teams have contributed to this success?
The long heritage of interaction between both companies' operational teams is essential for the smooth execution of the launch campaign. Without this heritage, we would not have been able to adjust so fast the configuration for 65WA to a single launch. As you say, this will be the 31st Eutelsat spacecraft launched by Arianespace. Over the past 15 years, we have launched with Ariane 5 more than any other operators. We also have 3 additional launches in the Ariane manifest, one already assigned to the first full electric European satellite, and we are candidate for the first commercial Ariane 6 flight in 2020. The operational teams trust each other and speak the same language. We will not be there today if this was not the case.
Thank you, Arlene.
If you look at the curve, you can see that we are dipping very slightly in altitude. That's all part of the plan. Looks a little bit like a roller coaster shape. That's because we are decreasing our altitude, but we are increasing our speed, and this helps us to go faster. Now we need to pick up speed so that we can climb higher. Now we need to get to an altitude of 915 kilometers and a speed of 913 kilometers. You can see that our speed is picking up over there on the right-hand side. Everybody at Arianespace is delighted to be orbiting another satellite for their friends at Eutelsat. Eutelsat's one of Arianespace's largest customers. It's also one of Arianespace's first ever customers. They've been working together for more than 3 decades. These teams certainly know each other well. The first satellite that Arianespace orbited for Eutelsat was in June 1983. It was launched as ECS-1, and it was called Eutelsat 1F1. Some of you will remember that. And with Eutelsat 65 West A, Arianespace will have delivered around half of the satellites in the Eutelsat fleet. And today, 65WA is the 31st spacecraft that Arianespace has launched.
Allumage UAP, décollage. And then you see like a bouquet of satellites, which again is the artist's view of many launches and a very long-standing collaboration.
To be continued indeed. Arianespace has 3 more Eutelsat launches in the order book, so it's busy times. And as we were watching that film, we had confirmation of the signal being picked up at the tracking station in Libreville.
Les paramètres de bord sont normaux. Il reste 5 minutes de poussée de l'étage supérieur crainté.
So we're on the west coast of Africa now. And Eutelsat 65 West A was designed and built by Space Systems Loral at their plant in Palo Alto in California. And the Loral and Ariane space teams are old friends too. They've been working together for many, many years. And this is the 51st geostationary satellite built by Space Systems Loral that Ariane Space has launched.
It takes a skilled and experienced team of people working closely together to design and build a high-performance satellite like Eutelsat 65 West A. SSL and Eutelsat engineers, managers, and technicians brought a strong focus and commitment to the satellite program that helped to make it a success.
My name is Arden Cassigian. I am the Director of US Program at the Technical Directorate in Eutelsat. I had a team of spacecraft engineers that include my Paris-based colleagues, Vijay and Pierre, that are my relay at the headquarters. Our team has been in charge of this program for more than 2.5 years right now. Since the signature of the contract with SSL in mid-2013, the deadline of the Rio Olympics has been a goal for us, as the satellite will serve Brazil and it will help broadcasters to get image of the games around the world.
As the program manager on the Eutelsat 65WA program, I am the primary interface between our customer Eutelsat and SSL. I'm there for them and I'm always available for them, and I make sure that their interests are represented on the program and within the factory.
I'm Vijay Thacker. I'm the systems manager for the Eutelsat 65 West A satellite program based here in Paris at the Eutelsat headquarters. I've been here for 15 years. My main role is to manage the interfaces between the different aspects of the subsystems on the ground with the satellite and with the launcher. The technical aspects and also the people aspects, managing the interfaces between my team here in Paris and the Space Systems Loral team based in Palo Alto.
This is the second satellite that SSL is building for Eutelsat. So we enter into this program with a good mutual understanding that has developed as the program has progressed. The level of trust has helped us to materialize some new ideas. For example, the way we tested the satellite in acoustic testing was an innovative experience.
We have a very complicated satellite program and we have to get it right first time. Our satellites spend their working life in space, 40,000 kilometers away, and we don't have the option, as we have when you buy a car, that if it goes wrong, you can bring it back to the garage, get it fixed and send it back out on the road. That's not a choice for us. We have to get it right first time.
I like to think that besides being a business, what we do will allow us to shape people's life and make them better to some extent, allowing them to communicate in new and different ways every day.
The success of the satellite is a result of many long hours of hard work. SSL would like to thank the many engineers, technicians, and managers who made a commitment to building an exceptional satellite.
Exceptional indeed, and right now it's heading higher and higher into space. If you look at the trajectory on the top right-hand side, you can see that we've gone down our Big Dipper and now we're heading back up it again. And we've actually reached our target speed. We need to be traveling at 913 kilometers per second to release our satellite. And if you look at the bottom right-hand side, you can see that we're already traveling a tad faster than that. But we need to get to an altitude of 695 kilometers before we can switch off our engine. We're getting ready to do that shortly. At the moment we are at 541 kilometers, so we've still got another 100 or so to climb. The onboard computer will know when to send the cut-off command.
Extraction de l'ESC sur commande de guidage.
Here we go. We've got switch off now of the engine. It's cutoff. And we're entering the next phase of the flight. This is the ballistic phase, and ballistic means that we're traveling without propulsion. We're traveling high enough and fast enough to cruise without the engine. We're on celestial autopilot right now. We have a short ballistic phase this time, only 2.5 minutes roughly. That's because we've just got the one satellite. Can be up to about 10 minutes sometimes. And this is what we call the CVI, the telemetry station here at the Ghana Space Center. These guys and girls are receiving the information from the tracking stations, and they make a quick selection to check how the flight's progressing. And right now they are all focusing very, very hard as we come closer to the moment of separation. And as I mentioned earlier, they will be analyzing the information later to see how the flight progressed and to make any changes for the next flight. You can see our tracking stations: Galileo to the left there, to the west, Natal, Ascension, Libreville on the west coast of Africa. We're now flying across Africa. And Malindi there on the east coast in Kenya is going to be tracking the actual moment of separation. Need to climb to an altitude of 915 kilometers above the Earth to separate our satellite. And right now, we're coming to the end of the orientation maneuvers. We're going to begin the transversal spin. Our satellite is not a spinner, it's actually stabilized on 3 axes, but it does need to be gently rotated at separation by 1.5 degrees per second.
Séparation du satellite 65, Eutelsat 65WA.
And we have confirmation. Our satellite has separated.
Well then, I'm going to end the video here. I'm Button 25. Goodbye.